Thank you. It is a great pleasure to introduce Ildiko Csepregi and her book. Ildiko is a research fellow at the University of Santiago de Compostela. Her book, Incubation in Early Byzantium, is the culmination of over 2 decades of meticulous research on Byzantine miracle collections and incubation narratives. Despite the centrality of incubation practices in both ancient and Christian healing traditions, scholarly engagement with the topic has been surprisingly limited. This work stands as the first comprehensive monograph devoted specifically Christian incubation in the early Byzantine world. Let me say a few words about the strengths of this book. It is a groundbreaking exploration of the emergence and transformation of Christian incubation cults in the early Byzantine period, drawing upon a wide range of both textual and archaeological evidence. Ildiko traces how the practice of incubation, that is sleeping in a sacred space to receive healing, was recontextualized within Christian ritual life. Of particular note is her attention to material culture. There is a dedicated chapter examining the rich array of votive offerings associated with these healing cults. The volume preserves detailed case studies of major cult centers, including, for example, St. Thecla, Cosmas and Damian, and illustrates how earlier Greco-Roman healing traditions were reframed within Christian theological and institutional frameworks. I think another very important outcome is that by situating Christian incubation within broader ritual, social, and political contexts, this book challenges binary distinctions between pagan and Christian healing and offers a more nuanced understanding of religious continuity and transformation. I think that it is really a major scholarly achievement and an indispensable resource for anyone interested in late antique religion and medicine, healing practices in the early medieval period, and also the cultural history of early Christianity. That is for me, and now is the turn for Ildiko to present her book. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and for these wonderful and kind words, and for the organizers and for Brepols for pushing me into this. I would like to praise the material itself. Very briefly, I would like to introduce what it is about and why it is such a fascinating treasure mine for many types of scholars dealing with any aspects of Byzantine social history or literary history or medical history. I did not make PowerPoint, but I have the book here, and you see it's this quite well-known mosaic from Rome in the sanctuary of Cosmas and Damian. So the incubation practice, in a nutshell, was this voluntarily going to a certain place, a cave, a tomb, a shrine, then later the relics, with the intention to sleep there. And during that sleep, in these ritualized conditions, many things happen to these individuals. And my students often ask that, was there any miracle indeed? And if you read the book, or if you read only the sources, these Byzantine miracle collections, you will understand that actually how these miracle working patterns worked, not just on a literary level, but on the level of a personal experience. I would like to quote a very short line from a Menander comedy, which describes incubation practice in the cult of Asclepius. The place is deserted, and no one near me will hear the words which I speak. Believe me, men, I had been dead during all the years of life that I was alive. The beautiful, the God, the holy, the evil were all the same to me. Such, it seems, was the darkness that formerly enveloped my understanding and concealed and hid me all of these things. But now that I have come here, I have become alive again for the rest of my life, as if I had laid down in the temple of Asclepius and had been saved. I walk, I talk, I think. This sun, so great, so beautiful, I have now discovered man for the first time. Now today I see under the clear sky, you, the air, the Acropolis, the theater. This experience was, for the Greeks, a life-changing experience, and it continued to be also for the Byzantines. And when we are saying early, it means that basically there was a continuous the continuous formation of the practice, which was very challenging for the early church to ban. Why? Because it answered such an elemental demand of healing, of life problems. And this is where the fascination of these sources come, that the layer of all these miracle stories is a personal experience. And I was very happy to hear from the previous book this human dimension and the human layer, which is very well attested in these sources. So whoever wants to deal with everyday life, medical problems, the history of women, they are very well represented, or problems, children, the difficulties of life in antiquity and in early Byzantium, these miracle collections offer a very rich material. And however ritualized and however literary sources these became, you could feel the people, the personal experience underneath. Another aspect of why these collections are so rich is that they attest to lost buildings. Very often we have very good descriptions of architectural features and even the districts in Constantinople or in Alexandria. It addresses rich descriptions of icons who, after a certain point, became involved in the evocation of the dream or in the recognition of the saints. So all the theories about iconoclasm and other Byzantine theological debates are attested in it. It's a fascinating material for students and historians of medicine. The Byzantine surgery and medical knowledge was very well represented in the dream descriptions of what people knew about surgery and how they imagined a medical intervention of the time. And what I was more interested is the literary formation of these miracle collections. We knew that I don't want to push a continuity theory to each of these saints' cult. Sometimes we know that there was a continuous transmission of the cult, which means the incubation, with all its elements. And it's also a rare occasion when we can witness how the whole set transforms from a pagan practice to a Christian ritual, and how successfully the Christian church and the hagiographers and the people themselves accommodated to this new Christian message. So the Christianization of the practice itself concerns the place, the cult site, and we have wonderful archaeological evidence to see how churches were rebuilt on temples. The function of the cult, which was the healing, and this healing function was the main aspect of the success story of Christian incubation, because healing was so elemental that it was somehow impossible to disregard, and this especially in such a successful context. The ritual, the incubation, the going to the place, the medium of communicating with this divine being or the saint later of the place, that is the dream. And it also helped the church to develop its own dream theory. And another aspect that it was a challenge that the church itself had to face, had to define itself in many aspects, also in confrontation with such a practice, not just on a theological level, but on very concrete levels, for instance, about medicine or the medical aspects or the healing mission of Christianity. The incubation miracle corpora are unique in describing, showing, witnessing this whole transmission and presenting a challenge to the well-known cult of the saints model, which is not one, but several. But the incubation saints challenge all this because they were not confessors, they were not really martyrs either, although they were rewritten as such. They don't model the healing gestures of Christ, and they are strikingly more similar to the ancient healing figures, the heroes, Asclepios or lesser deities who occupied the place. And from this importance of the place come a rather odd vision of how this cult operated, because the saints in several occasions were just accidental, were just the new occupants of the cult. The point was that they were Christians and they were doing the same practice as the earlier pagan healer did. I think I'm at time now.
Thank you very much, Ildiko. Thank you. And now it's time for questions. So feel free to post your questions in the Q&A. If we don't have any questions, I may ask the first question, or perhaps a point to elaborate further, because I found it extremely interesting, the role of oral transmission. And it's something which many times historians usually do not consider, because we usually, try to explain and try to find, evidence through written history, written stories. But I think that you have made this point, it's important. What role did oral transmission play in the formation of these healing accounts? And I was wondering whether this oral storytelling relates, also can we say that it relates to actual practices performed at the shrines?
Yes. The literary aspect of if one reads these collections, immediately sees that oral tradition is presented as the main source, and the hagiographers, very cunningly using it as a literary motive, refer to their oral sources, sometimes plausibly, and we can believe that, yeah, someone really told the story to them, but sometimes make a totally artificial tale around how these stories circulated orally. What we know for certain that these stories circulated widely, and people, the main motive for going to a shrine in antiquity or in Byzantium was because people knew stories about it. And as I'm speaking, I'm sitting on the road in the street in Santiago de Compostela, which is the one where all the pilgrims enter and catch sight the cathedral for the first time, and they are also coming because of a story. And it's not necessarily a written source, an oral story which served for the people to initiate their journey, to know about the shrine, to know about the specialties, how it works. But they also equipped them with what to expect, how this dreaming is taking place, what you are supposed to do before, what you are going to see, what is the image, what can you ask, what oracular or healing methods the healers, the dream healers will use. And because it was a dream, of course, telling the dream was the oral composition itself. And these stories written and told in the sanctuaries equipped also the dreamers, the participants of the ritual, with some tool how to tell their own stories and what stories to bring home. And about the last part of your question, what rituals or what actual acts related to orality were present in the ritual or in the sanctuaries, from antiquity, we have lavish sources and very well analyzed by wonderful scholars. But even in this Byzantine context, we knew that they were eating together, many of them, many of these incubation shrines. There were common meals, and that was the place when miracles were told. They were in this incubation. Remember that people spent a lot of time in the church, often weeks or months. And that was the time when they shared their own stories, the stories they heard, the stories the priests were telling them, and the ex-votos which were presented were also a very tiny representation of a richer oral material behind. So I see these votives just a signal, just to evoke and push the button, and surely those who were present in the church, and we have descriptions of such scenes, were telling the stories to each other, to encourage, just to fun. It was an important entertainment literature of the time, of these miraculous, very odd and bizarre miraculous stories.
Thank you. And we have two questions. One from the anonymous attendee in the Q&A. I read, could you trace a development in incubation practices from the 6th to the 10th century, for example, in Constantinople, or is just going on without much of a change?
You mean that if the incubation practice itself develops from between the 6th and the 10th centuries, the tricky thing that we have the sources from the 10th centuries, basically, or in the case of Asclepius from the 7th, and they present a variation. Thecla's cult, Saint Thecla's cult, is unique on its own, and the more famous Cosmas and Damian and other cults are also different. It depends very much on the hagiographer. In the hands of Sophronius, who was learned and knew a lot and how to present such kind of miracles, these incubation descriptions became a theological tool. He defended his own theological ideas and attacked the heretics of the time. In an alternative Cosmas and Damian collection from Egypt, we have the same theological agenda behind and heretical anti-propaganda, but the heresies change. It's a monophysite text. So I don't say there was a development in the very essence of the practice, that people went there to sleep, had a dream, told it to the priest, recorded, and went home. Of course, the icons, or then later the relics, or even medical knowledge, when it was more elaborated, it entered into the dreams, into the miracle content itself. But I think the practice itself is so basic. Of course, its literary description is changing and becomes more varied and elaborated, but the practice itself is so basic and so much the same.
Thank you. And one more, the last question by Maria Alessia Rossi. Thank you very much for this exciting book. Do you discuss any representations of incubation, if there are any?
Representations?
Yes.
You mean artistic representations?
Yes, this is what she's asking about.
Yes. No. In the book, I describe thoroughly many texts also describing art objects and descriptions of incubation scenes within those texts, on some textiles, on some paintings, on some votive objects. But I myself, I'm not an art historian. I don't deal with representations of incubation on paintings or an artistic source, but I do deal with their description in the text themselves.
Thank you very much, Ildiko. Once again, congratulations. And I wish you all the best with your book. And let me hand over to the next chair, Nicholas Morton. Thank you.
Thank you.